Good morning, everybody. Welcome to yet another episode of Health Discourse with Sushant and Sakshi. And today, the center of discussion is going to be about diabetes reversal. So, Sushant, welcome to this episode and good morning. And
Morning.
let us start this discussion by talking about diabetes reversal. So, I have a very curious question here that is it possible that, I mean, there are so many companies out there in the market that claim that they can reverse diabetes and HbA1c can be lowered and lot of claims. So, is it possible that diabetes can actually be reversed in the first place?
Funny question. It's it's like, teaching an illiterate how to, multiply 5 into 5, right? So to keep it very simple, the answer is no. Your diabetes cannot be reversed, right? And it is important to understand the mechanics behind onset and progression of type 2 diabetes, right? So essentially, uh, a lot of companies would claim that we are reversing HbA1c, we are reducing your blood glucose level, right? And it is equivalent to reversal of diabetes. Although they're saying, probably we have get rid of medicines, right? And they may claim they've reversed diabetes. All obnoxious claim, no scientific evidence, no proofs, and it is actually all wrong claims, right? So let us understand the this metabolic syndrome, right? Which is the which triggers the onset and progression of a range of other diseases as well, right? Including cardiovascular disease and chronic kidney disease. We did that video disease trilogy few weeks back, right? Uh,
Absolutely.
so the situation is first you have to understand, uh, what is disease, right? Disease is dis plus ease. It means your body is not at ease. It means your body is imbalanced, right? And in our body, 57% of cells are microbial, 99% of genes are microbial, right? So the imbalance inside our body are mostly triggered by microbes living on and inside our bodies, especially those living in our colon and large intestine and those living in our mouth, right? So in case of type 2 diabetes, there is an imbalance where first your fasting insulin spikes. So I don't need to tell anyone what insulin is, right? So it's one of those which carries glucose to different parts of the cells and body, and that's the basic job of to clear the glucose of the circulation and make sure all the energy is passed on to all the cells where we perform various biological processes and keep us healthy, right? So in case of imbalance, first your fasting insulin spikes, which is the first stage, early stage of type 2 diabetes. Second is your fasting glucose spikes or fasting sugar spikes. And third, finally, your HbA1c spike. If you, if anyone is focusing on, suppressing HbA1c or saying, I've reduced from 9.8 to 6.3 or to 7.5 or 5.8, you are just suppressing your blood sugar response. You are not reversing diabetes. I'm very clear on this. This is how most of the companies are putting. I've seen people are saying, even if your HbA1c is high, we can reverse diabetes. It's all blind lie, right? First thing. Second thing is let us understand how does this metabolic syndrome develop. So you have to understand there are cells called endothelial cells, right, along our blood vessels, right? Now, these endothelial cells are capable of producing one of the most important gas or molecule inside the body, right, which is nitric oxide, right? And nitric oxide is the molecule which your body needs to regulate all the functions. So endothelial cell uh, is attached to an enzyme called endothelial nitric oxide synthase, NOS, ENOS, we generally call it ENOS, right? So it is this enzyme is capable of producing nitric oxide by synthesizing a lot of L-arginine. And L-arginine again is a semi-essential amino acid we do take from our nutrition choices, but it is also produced via urea cycle inside our body, right? So again, we don't need to consume too much of. If you're thinking, we need to consume too much of L-arginine to make sure nitric oxide is there, it is wrong, because if you're consuming too much of L-arginine, it could activate another enzyme, arginase, which can lead to production of ammonia, which can trigger a lot of other digestive and metabolic health issues, right? So if your endothelial cells is capable or is producing nitric oxide, right? It is very important because nitric oxide regulates your oxygen delivery, blood flow, right? And insulin signaling, it's a vasodilator. It regulates your blood pressure levels. It reduces your risk of cardiovascular disease. It even makes sure the blood flows to every part of the body, including brain, including your sexual organs. So nitric oxide is virtually linked with every single uh, metabolic health issue, or if the lack of nitric oxide is linked to every single chronic disease, including dementia, including erectile dysfunction, obviously type 2 diabetes. So what happens? Again, I'll tell you one more thing. So this nitric oxide production of through endothelial cell, right, is starts the ability of endothelial to produce nitric oxide start reducing as we age. So by the time we reach the age of 50, right, our body's ability to produce nitric oxide is reduced to virtually by 50%, right? So here comes the role of the microbes living in a mouth, right? So there are a lot of microbes living in a mouth which could produce nitric oxide out of nitrate, and nitrate is found in various vegetables, various foods, right? So this is the second pathway which produces nitric oxide, and here comes the role of the oral microbiome in regulating our metabolic health. So what happens is that let us go to the process, right? So when we are consuming something that's, let's say we are consuming some carbohydrates, or maybe some food which is, or maybe sugary food, or any, or even microbiota accessible carbohydrates, even fiber, or whatever we are consuming, right? So our microbes in the mouth actually pre-digest them, right? And make sure it is available for the absorption and digestion in small intestine and colon, right? But it also does an important act. It sends a biochemical signal to your pancreas telling that, there's something sweet I've encountered. Please start releasing insulin, right? That's a kind of communication. So pancreas releases insulin, and it goes attached to all the insulin receptors, majorly on, fat cells, liver cells, and muscle cells, right? Most cells, but majorly on these, right? So there's a lot of signaling happening, right? So all these signaling cascades, or submerges on your endothelial cell ENOS, right? So if your ENOS is producing enough nitric oxide, right? Uh, a protein called GLUT4 is released. It goes to the cell membrane, binds glucose to it, and brings it back to the circulation. Right? So this all is important. If your nitric oxide is not, if body is not producing nitric oxide, probably there is an uncoupling of ENOS. So probably, yeah, this there is a bar in insulin communication, insulin signaling, and the GLUT4 is not released, and so it doesn't, so the glucose is in circulation. When it is in circulation, again a message goes, and again insulin is released. So you have hyperglycemia, hyperinsulinemia, right? All these things, and which is terminates, which starts the onset and progression of type 2 diabetes. Now, what could stop uh, you know the production of nitric oxide? Again, here comes the role of gut microbiome, because oxidative stress can uncouple ENOS, right? So a lot of oxidative stress, a lot of inflammation. So we know that a lot of metabolites produced by macrons such as LPS, tyramine, enzyme propionate, glucose, fructose metabolism, a lot of these things which could trigger inflammation, right? A precresol which could trigger inflammation, which could uncouple ENS, and which could cause deficient nitric oxide, which impair with insulin signaling, could impair with blood flow to different body parts, and there are multiple issues, right? So this is the basic of how you can regulate your insulin response. So nitric oxide is the most beneficial, you know, gas which is produced both by endothelial cell and by your oral microbiome, right? So again, if you're taking a lot of mouthwashes, toothpaste full of fluoride and a lot of these, artificial sweeteners such as saccharins and aspartame and a lot of SLS, so it is going to disrupt your oral microbiome. Your oral microbiome will lose its ability to produce nitric oxide, right? So again, when your body is not producing nitric oxide, or another pathway is when your gut microbiome is not producing enough bitrate, right? Bitrate tell pancreas how much of insulin and when it has to be released, right? Again, the same process, right? So again, if your microbiome, gut microbiome is imbalanced, not producing enough of bitrate, or it's producing a lot of precursor, which is suppressing your GLP-1, PYY, or it is producing a lot of LPS, a lot of these pro-inflammatory metabolites, right, which could trigger insulin, which could impact the ability of your pancreas to release insulin, or it could impact the nitric oxide production, right? So that is where fasting insulin spikes, and then your glucose is actually in your circulatory system. Again, your circulatory system is it's basically water soluble. So glucose and all this, except lipids, all this easily flow in your circulatory system. When you have, that's what is shown in your blood works in your CGM machines, right? So your CGM machine is showing that there is a glucose in your circulatory system. Now it means that your body, there's a trigger wave of insulin resistance going on, or there's a lack of nitric oxide production inside the body, which is causing hyperinsulinemia, hyperglycemia, right? And again, when you see in CGM, you don't know why it is, and you start suppressing it. Similarly, if you don't do that, it also gets converted into the final stage of metabolic syndrome, which is HbA1c, right? Again, HbA1c is something which keeps on fluctuating and you keep on suppressing it. So these companies who are claiming that we can reverse diabetes by suppressing HbA1c is just a flawed concept. So ask them whether they know which genes are being expressed, whether my body is producing nitric oxide or not. How well my oral microbiome is capable of producing nitric oxide. Whether my body is producing LPS, picrosol, a lot of these. These are the regulatory molecular biomarkers which should never show up in your blood work or in your CGMs, right? So, so that's why to answer your question, you cannot reverse diabetes. It's all way of making money, but just in cashing your misery, right? And that's the problem, because if you have type 2 diabetes, there's increases of cardiovascular, obviously nitric oxide. I know it's a vasodilator, right? So if your body is not producing nitric oxide, probably it would lead to a lot of high blood pressure and increases for cardiovascular disease, erectile dysfunction. That's why people who have type 2 diabetes also have, infertility issues, right? And then again, dementia is called type 3 diabetes. Brain is an insulin sensitive organ. So, again, that's all linked.
I just wanted to know that now that you have told the importance of gut microbiome and oral microbiome here, right? What happens to an individual's body when they go through such programs? And let's say it works for one, it doesn't works. I mean, see, whatever their approach is, it is very much standardized. Okay, it is not
Mhm.
something that is unique or personalized, because that is a guesswork. Somewhere this is a guesswork, right?
Hmm.
Now, so what happens to an individual after they come out of such a program, and what will happen to their body?
See, when you're going for such programs, you're currently masking your problem. You're suppressing your symptoms. When you suppress one, either through nutrition or through pharmaceuticals, right? Maybe they may say, your pharmaceutical has gone because you have reduced the carbohydrate content, so your blood sugar level is suppressed. So you may go off your metformin and other medicines, but soon it's not a sustainable way of, because again you are managing the disease. You may end up again taking up your pharmaceuticals, right? And such would have multifaceted impact on it will create three other symptoms, right? And again, you would either suppress them or manage them through nutrition, through pharmaceuticals. So it's a vicious cycle. It goes on and on. So think about it, whether you want to really you know manage a health condition you already have, or you would like to know whether I am going my current path, right? Going my path, what I'm doing, what my currently daily choices are, dietary choices are, lifestyle choices are, my stress levels, my environment, and a lot of these things, and the kind of even uh, supermarket foods and packaged foods I buy, whether if I'm going to develop a particular disease like type 2 diabetes, right? If I could find that, right, I could find out those molecules are found which may make me develop type 2 diabetes in next 3 to 5 years, right? And if I know how I could eliminate them through nutrition, probably you would not develop a disease, right? But rather we are focusing more on, okay, how do I manage them? How do I manage the current condition? And probably if these companies are saying, okay, we are managing your type 2 diabetes, then it's a good marketing, it's not a problem because, people are never knew about that there are technology and science and technology in place which can actually help you understand what is causing you to develop a disease, which we have right now, right? Which we are actually doing, and which we are decoding your biology at a molecular level. So we can tell you, we can even predict your glycemic response to 300 plus foods, right? So we can tell you whether food is going to spike your insulin. I'm not talking of glucose here or HbA1c, insulin, right? So essentially, when you are claiming diabetes reversal program, it's all bogus. It's all fraud.
So, actually, here another, another point that is very important to discuss
Mhm.
is that the low GI foods that are very much prominently being sold in the market. So, I think it is time that we should now clarify that this glycemic index and the glycemic response, the controversy which is going around. Many people don't know what is a glycemic response, but low GI has become a trending word because of the Instagram and influencers and saying people,
Mhm.
marketing it through
Mhm.
celebrities and all.
Mhm.
So I think let us shed some light on this concept also, that why glycemic response for an individual with diabetes is important.
Okay, so glycemic index, what it tells you whether after eating your food, your body would have high glucose or probably whether you have a high insulin response. It assumes that every individual's body will respond to a food in a similar way. For instance, you and me, if we are eating almonds, people think almond doesn't spike your insulin, it does. So if you
So
and
that
me,
is the GI. That is the GI speaking that will not spike. That the
yeah,
GI says that it will not spike, but the
yeah.
glycemic response.
So you have to see here two concepts. One is glycemic response is different for every individual. So for you, watermelon may spike, right? For me, banana may or almonds may spike. For me, my response to watermelon, my glycemic response to watermelon would be normal, right? Your response would be high, and my response to banana or almonds would be high. Your would be normal, right? It all depends upon your function of the microbiome, right?
So for every individual, glycemic response is unique. So the low GI theory that this will not spike your blood sugar level is a flawed theory.
Is a flawed theory. Another flawed theory is high protein diets, right? So so people think when we have type 2 diabetes, let us replace carbohydrates with high protein. Now guess what happens? You are going more deep into the well of type 2 diabetes because there are certain metabolites for your gut microbiome when you're taking replacing your carbohydrate with protein, you are actually consuming more than the protein your body needs right now, right? So your body is very smart. Your small intestine will say, oh, this is what I need. Maybe uh, 0.5, 0.8 grams per kg of body weight. This is what I need. Rest you go to colon, right? Now these microbes in your colon start eating up proteins like, for instance, histidine, right? Histidine is a precursor for histamine, right? So it can trigger histamine. Histidine can be metabolized by certain gut microbes into enzyl propionate. Again, it impairs your insulin signaling at molecular level, which will never show up in your blood work or in your CGMs. So your protein could spike your insulin. Second thing, precresol. Precresol is a byproduct of your microbes eating up tyrosine, right? Now, precresol suppresses your GLP-1 production. GLP-1 we know is a key hormone regulator for your insulin response. So you will have an impaired insulin signaling at a molecular level, which will again not show up in your blood work. Similarly, tyramine again is a byproduct of tyrosine. It's all does the same thing. It impairs your insulin signaling, right? So there are multiple uh, pathways, which could trigger inflammatory response, right? Uh, like these, okay? So which would never show up in your blood work in your CGMs or with any of such tracking devices, right? So essentially, you need to understand the molecular interaction happening inside the body. What is making my insulin go haywire? Whether my insulin is going, probably insulin is being released properly, right? But again, because of low nitric oxide production, it is not able to bring the glucose back into cells, into circulation. So it's like, understand in simple words, your every part of your body needs glucose. Now nitric oxide opens up all the gates and windows for this glucose to pass, whether it is brain, whether it is whatever peripheral tissues, right? So if it's not there, probably so nitric oxide is one of the key molecule, and that's why you need to understand your oral macromolecules. Endothelial cells would start ability of endothelial cells to produce nitric oxide will start going as you age, right? So again, there are multiple other factors. If you are taking a lot of statins and a lot of these, drugs, it could suppress your nitric oxide production because for oral microbiome to produce nitric oxide, it converts nitrate into nitrate. Nitrate get mixed up with the stomach acid, right, to produce nitric oxide. So if you're having acid reflux, or you're having, you're taking a lot of statins because of high cholesterol levels, again, that's a different discussion. But I'm just giving you a heads up on this, So if you're taking those antibiotics and drugs, or if you have an acid reflux, you're taking PPIs, protein pump inhibitors to mask your acid reflux problem, you would have a increased elevated risk of type 2 diabetes. So these things would never, these companies would never count for that, right? So just ask them, but do you track your acid reflux, how acid reflux is going to impact my type 2 diabetes, right? If you're taking PPIs, probably you already have a deficient or a compromised nitric oxide production.
Another question, important question. One of their approach is using the CGM machine, right? Now, I would like to ask you a very logical question here, that the Indian diet, which is in every region, we eat, let's say in North, we like to eat rajma and chawal together, rajma rice together, right? In South, they eat sambar rice together, right? Then in the West, you have a lot of rotis with sabzi, dal. It's like a thali system everywhere in India
Mhm.
mostly. They pair it up with a lot of condiments, and then the salad and everything. Now, because of such a beautiful way of eating that our country has, is it actually possible to determine what food is exactly spiking out that sugar level, and when you have a CGM
Mm.
tied to your body?
No. So it is based on, for instance, if you're taking Rajman rice, which is a typical Punjabi North Indian diet, right? And curd and all these things. So you assume kidney beans or rajma will not spike your glucose. But let me tell you, mention about precursor, kidney beans have tyrosine and phenol, right? So it can be converted by your microbiome into precursor. Again, precursor suppresses your GLP-1 and it increases the risk of type 2 diabetes. So, assumption that kidney beans is not going to spike my glucose is baseless, is wrong.
Now, you forgot to mention rice. You're eating rice along with rajma. You're not just eating it like that,
Yeah,
standalone,
so
right?
another aspect is
So,
you will not tell, okay, I have put CGM, so first I will eat rajma, then I will eat rice, then probably I will take curd, right? So I will see the impact of every food, and that is how I eat food. That is not you. That is not how you eat food. You can't, if you're taking bread, or probably in Indian language, a roti or chapati with your dal, or your vegetable, or your potato, right? You don't say, okay, let me first eat potato, then I'll eat chapati, right? It doesn't work like that. So you mix it up,
and
right?
what if you're eating a stuffed paratha that already has the vegetable inside? So,
So that's
I
what
mean,
that's what.
that doesn't make any sense that you're putting on a CGM,
So
and
so, so
also another fact that I know from being from a science from my early school days, that this whatever happens, the glucose that is produced in the blood, It doesn't happen rapidly once you eat. It takes time to digest, right? Let's say if you're putting rajma in your mouth, next second you will not know that it has actually entered in your bloodstream. Is it impacting your blood glucose levels or not?
So there's
Yeah.
multiple issues, in this.
Yeah.
The multiple, and that's why, that's what I want to share. So we have built this very complex algorithm where we can predict your type 2 diabetes, risk of type 2 diabetes, and we can even predict your insulin response to 300 plus foods. So not only single foods, we can also tell you probably if you're, as you mentioned, if you're eating a stuffed paratha, how a wheat and maybe cabbage or radish would combine together would impact your blood sugar response, right? Probably radish with maybe wheat may not spike as much, but your cabbage or some other even lentil would spike that much, right? So we are not only telling you individual response, but we are also telling you the combined response, different combinations. So it's a very complex model what we have built, right? And it's all mathematics. So again, this is all based on everyone's unique either gut or oral microbiome or a combined of both, right? That's the beauty of science. So we decode the all the compounds produced at a molecular level, right? Which may or may not show up in your blood work, right? So for us, this CGM is all CGM or your blood work is just a pastime. It is not built. It's just a technology used by healthcare startups to raise money from VCs and show good graphs, right? Oh, see, this graph has gone down, these graphs have gone up, right? And even if you do clinical studies on HbA1c, right? It is all just management of diseases and how much of sample size you take. In India, which is 100 million diabetic, you are doing a sample size of 150 or 250 people, and you're saying it's representative of 100 million
I've also
people.
seen sample size of 30 people. I mean,
This is
that's
all waste of money and waste of resources, nothing else.
yeah. So I think India is a very diverse population, and the kind of data sets we need has to go beyond, you know, has to be minimum of 1 million or something, because
No,
because
not million is not possible, but to start with 10,000 to 15,000,
10,000 to 15,000, but yes, up to 1 million, because that is where we justify that we have such a diverse population, and the people coming from tribes
No,
and
but at least
urban
100,
set.
you can go ahead and do 100,000 people, and different. And so it's not that one clinical trial, you can do 100,000 at different 3 to 4 clinical trials, and you can mix that data to understand. So that kind of study should be done, but 50, 100 is just a joke.
Yes. So I think with this we come to the end of this discussion, and I would highly recommend Sushant that you should give some parting remarks to the people with diabetes. What are the basics that they can follow in their daily lives? I mean, we never recommend anything standardized, but yes, there are some standards.
So
Let's talk. Let's talk. Yes.
I'll give you a few things, 3 facts. I'll give you 3 facts which are essential and which would drive your every decision. So your body is made up of 30 trillion cells, 38 trillion cells, right? Every cell has DNA, right? Nucleus has a DNA molecule which is organized into various genes. Now, in terms of these genes are static, it doesn't, it just tell you a standard operating procedure, what function should be performed, right? So it will not change for your life. Again, you get only 25,000 genes from your parents, 2 to 20 million genes are microbial. So if you are not understanding your microbial activity and functions, you are decoding just 1% of your health, right? Second thing, 57% of cells inside our body are microbial, more than 50%, right? So we have as many microbes in us inside our body in as we have cells, 38 trillion, right? 70% of immune cells is around our gut lining, right? So immune reaction has a role to play in every single chronic disease. Another point here to mention here is that, again, microbiome not only regulates your digestion, motility, but it also impacts your heart, your brain, your hormone regulation, which is linked to various metabolic issues, right? Even your sleep. So if you are not understanding the functions of the microbiome, I'm not showing which microbe is there, that doesn't matter. Not microbial DNA, but the function, the genes expressed by them. And if you're not understanding that, you are not going to solve the type 2 diabetes problem. Never, right? And that there's a lot of, you Google it, there are a lot of research papers around the connection between gut microbiome, oral microbiome, and type 2 diabetes. Go and research nitric oxide and type 2 diabetes, you'll find. Go and research nitric oxide plus cardiovascular, you'll find. Go and research nitric oxide plus erectile dysfunction, plus infertility, dementia, chronic kidney disease, right? So there are multiple things.
So thank you, Sushant. I think this has been a very intuitive discussion, and let us hope that I think people should benefit from this discussion. So thank you and have a good day.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.